Okay, so welcome everyone. So I'm Francisco Lelan. I work in internal communications at Trivago. And today I would like to share some of the experiences that we have. I will not say that it's maybe the best experience because I think creating audiovisual content is really, really difficult, and we have encountered several obstacles or blockers that we face. But I think that we created a really good case study for this, and I hope that this is worth it for you. So the first thing that I wanted to share is how we came up at Trivago. Trivago is it's a fast-growing company. It was a startup like 10 years ago. So we grew up very fast in the last years. And there was a point that we reached, like we actually needed internal communications because the way it was handled, it was more done by HR. You know how these things happen, that HR is doing internal communication, but there's no strategy behind. So the company approached us. I was working in external communications and offered us this challenge, which was like building an internal communication department. And so, yeah, this is kind of how we started, but we have what we have was some problems. The first problem that we had was like we had a lot of noise. So at the moment that the company approached us and say, okay, we need to do something about this, we had a lot of channels, communication, chats. The company had bought it like tools to do internal communication, but there was nobody regulating this. So everyone was sharing everything at all times, and there was a lot of noise, like a massive noise. This generated like a lot of focus because nobody had didn't know what to focus on. So we didn't know if we needed to pay attention to this message, to a message from our CEO, to a message from a manager, to a message about, I don't know, something more social, to something more business-like. So, and everyone was sharing, and the information, how they shared it was different because somebody was sharing something like super crisp about something that was important to know, and the other one was writing, I don't know, a book about it. So it was really, we didn't have this lack of focus. Okay, I see that here. Sorry, I'm checking with the screen sharing, and I saw that it didn't appear that. And the other problem that we have is that there was like a lot of context. So people didn't know what was the right context, what was the company headed, what was happening inside the company because of this noise and this lack of focus. So our first goals was to reduce this noise and to try to put some order in our internal communication channels, to try to define which one were the internal communication channels and created guidelines. What we were going to use this for, the emails, if we use emails, what are we going to do with emails? If we send company-wide emails, when and for what? If we use Slack, what do we have in our main channel? How we share messages? If we do videos, how we were going to do videos? If we have some live formats, like we call it Trivago Fridays, where we have like a presentation where a manager or someone from our leadership team comes and they actually discuss, and it's like a nice Q&A. So how are we going to do this and work on this? So this was our first goal, to reduce noise. And to reduce noise, to bring some clarity, to create clarity and know where do you need to focus and know where do you need to pay your attention and put your energy on. And this for us also had the ultimate goal of increasing impact, because the impact that people made in the organization, if they have the information right, they could increase the impact. And all of this for us is really important, because with all these things clear and with no noise, with clarity and the ability to focus and the ability to increase your impact, for us is really important, because we are in the tech industry, and for us this is an industry where everything moves so quickly that we need our employees to feel empowered, and the empowerment that we need them is to have better decision making. So we want our employees to be empowered and to act fast and to have the right context so that they can take decisions and make the right decisions. So this was really, really important for us. So when we started, then the second problem came, is that usually they came and they say, okay, we need to create this, you need to create this strategy, but they kind of like gave us the strategy. So it was like, you need to create videos. So you need to do videos. You have to do videos because we need more videos because everybody's doing videos. And for us, it was like, okay, at the beginning, we kind of like started doing a lot of videos, and we started doing videos, and we were like creating formats, and we were saying one format was like doing a video that was called a drink with, and we had one drink with someone, and we have like an informal chat. Then we have other videos that was showcasing some teams, how they work. And we were doing videos and we were doing videos, and until some point we kind of like we put a stop, and we say, okay, we're not going to do any more videos because we were going crazy with the videos. Nobody was watching, and we didn't have like the idea what we were doing. We just were doing videos without knowing if stopping and saying, okay, are people watching this? Does this make sense? Are we taking time of them? How are we doing it? And we kind of like stopped, reflected, and we decided to fulfill the role of internal communicators as it is, that is, to act as consultants. We were not there to review emails, to create only some content, but it was like to act as consultants and to be next to the strategy, because the business wants to share decisions with employees to know where they're headed, and we need to know, and they need to know how they can contribute. But we needed to be close to the business to see how we were going to share those news. So the first things for us, like to what to consider before doing audiovisual content, and this is not just videos, this is from an infographic to a webinar to a presentation, or to creating video, or to creating podcast. And the first thing for me is alignment. So it is really important to align. And I know that this is kind of like the word of the last 10 years probably, but I think it's key to align. And who needs to align? We need to align corporate communications or internal communications with the stakeholder, internal stakeholder, and we need to align. And we need to sit down and have some questions answered. So the first question is, what is this need for? Like, what is your goal? Ask your stakeholder, what is your goal? What do you need? What is your communication need? And the second question is, who is it for? Because I think it's really important that not only internally we have different audiences, but if it is internal, but probably maybe then employer branding wants to share it externally, to have all this consideration. Also, what's the deadline? And what is the desired outcome? What do they want with this? And I think it's really important to also ask them, like, what are the key messages they want to push? Because sometimes stakeholders comes with an idea and they say, okay, they actually come to you with the communication need, and they say, okay, I need to communicate that there's a new process for all employees, and I need to do it in a video. This is actually how they come, right? So they come to us and they say, I know I have this need and I have the solution, because they think the solution is a video or this is an infographic. And you need to actually ask all these questions before for them, and to then, as your role of internal communication as a consultant, decide and say, this is not a video. Maybe this is just maybe just an article in your internal newsletter or whatever, or maybe this is an infographic that we need, or maybe this is an event and we need like to create a live format for this and have a Q&A. So this is where you have to act and see, with all these questions, what do you want to do? Because probably they will come and they will say, okay, we need this video, but probably you say, like, this doesn't make sense to do a video. So this is the first stage, I would say, before starting any communication process with your stakeholders. Ask these questions, and then you, as the consultant, will decide what is the actual need. How are we going to go through this with this need? Okay, if it's a video, if it's a podcast or infographic. The second alignment, and this is very important for us because we have encountered a lot of problems, that before we align with the stakeholder, we kind of like put everything to our maybe designer or videographer and whatever, and they were like, okay, they were like just doing it, but we were not involving them also as part of the project. We're just saying, and I think this is very common that happens with designers probably, that you just throw like a brief or some orders and they have to execute, but they actually don't have an input, and then problems comes. So The second stage is alignment number 2. So as I was saying, alignment is super, super important. And I think here is where you need to align between corporate communications, your role, the stakeholder, and the designer or videographer. So it's really important that the designer that designs teams or videographers are really, really involved in this, and they decide, okay, if we're going to do a video, if we're going to do an infographic, involve them, make them participate. So here, one of the questions that we have is like to align expectations again. What is the desired outcome? Because probably your desired outcome that the stakeholder, you as internal communicators, you have interpreted that as something, but then the designers say, okay, like maybe there's a different solution, or maybe there's I interpreted this as something different. The other part that is I think is really important is to define some dates to present a previews to the stakeholders. So once you decide this, okay, we are going to do a video or an infographic, okay, what is it, the dates that we're going to present previews? Because then if we don't have these previews, the outcome is probably different than the stakeholder wanted, and then you have wasted your time. It happened to us recently that we created for almost 4 months a video that we had like some external purposes, and we didn't have like we actually failed on this proper alignment. And then the videographer created like a super nice video, but the stakeholder, which was talent attraction, decided that the video was not what they wanted. They didn't expect that. So there was like a communication problem there between the stakeholder, the designer, and they didn't actually align during these stages creating this. So it was a big problem because we actually wasted a lot of money and we wasted a lot of time. The third thing that we actually need to do also when you align here is to define your KPIs. So how are you going to measure this? How is it going to be measured? Like if we do an infographic, where is it going to be posted? How do we know if people actually see it? If they are understanding? Also with the video, do we have the resources to actually measure this video, the number of views? If we measure, how do we measure if they actually stop and leave the video in the middle? This is really important to actually know also how are you going to measure. Then to have also a budget, it's really important. Also here it depends on the company, but to have a budget, okay, how much it's going to cost to do this. And the last thing before you start doing any videos or anything, it's important to agree upon a brief, because this brief has to be very clear. And it's very important here, I think, like here in internal comms, the internal communicators are kind of like acting as in the agency role of that you align with you are kind of like the person organizing and aligning with everyone. So you are kind of like key accounts managers here, aligning everyone. Yeah. So our stage 3, I would say, is like the pre-production. So we actually know what we're going to do. We actually know now what we have done. We have agreed upon a brief. So here we need to decide in our team, like, what are the resources that we have? Do we have the cameras to do this video? Do we have like the places where we want to go? How are we going to do it? Like, how much time are we going to invest on this? Then the style, because probably now you have like what is the video or whatever, but if it's a video, if it's an interview, is it a more creative video? Is it an infographic? What style of infographic that you are going to do? Is it more formal, more informal? It is important to have the style, how you're going to communicate this. And then to have a script. This is essential, especially for a video, to have the script written down also and agree then with the stakeholder, because the script will tell you a lot of things. Will tell you what are you going to do, especially, but it will tell you also how are you going to plan this, because you know the right length that you need for this content. Then we have another stage that it will be the script and the casting. This is for me very important, especially when doing videos. So for the script, and for the casting, we need some questions to be answered. The first one in the script, is it internal or is it external? Or is it probably maybe both? Because sometimes we create, for example, in Trivago, we create internal content, then it has the possibility to go externally. So if we create this, but we don't know at the moment if we are going to do it external, we need to know if this content has the possibility to go externally, because then the internal content that we do has to be very adaptable to maybe edit some parts that you can actually share it externally. So maybe you are, I don't know, having an interview to your CEO, and you're creating a video with this, and a lot of the information that says there is probably useful for going externally, but some of the parts you need to cut them because they are more for internal use. So you need to actually adapt the script if you know these things to do it. If it's internal, if it's external, but if it's both, adapt it. So everyone can, so then it's really easy to just cut and paste and create another video for external uses. The other thing is like to have the final okay from the stakeholder. As I said, like once you write the script, share it again with the stakeholder. And again, it's very boring, but you need to align again. Also define the length, because the script will tell you how long it is. If you write a script for 5 minutes, then you will go into film for 5 minutes, and then it's very difficult to cut down because they say, okay, no, it's too long. The stakeholder will come and say it's too long in the end, and it's like, but this is the actual length that you actually told me, and we wrote a script that works in this length, so it's very difficult then to cut down. And where are you going to do it? I mean, it is very important to have your stage, your scenario, like where, if it's going to be outside, you're going to film outside, where are you going to film, to have the locations. Then for the casting, it is really important also to have some cast selection. So sometimes when we do internal videos, we actually select employees. So the employees that are our employees are actually the persons featured in the video, and they're the ones speaking, and they're the ones telling about a project, they're ones I don't know, talking. So it's really important to have these cast selections, because this is something that is probably it's not so obvious, but some people are really not able to speak in front of a camera. So they are excellent at their job and they're perfectly okay, but then when they are actually going to tell a project and they need to go and they see the cameras and the lights, they actually freeze, and the video it's not appealing, you know, because you see someone very tense speaking to the camera. And we have these cases where we have like people really tense speaking to the camera, and it was a video that was difficult to watch. So it's really important to actually have the cast selection. Sometimes you need someone that is, maybe they don't have this, they feel really intimidated by the camera, but maybe you can do some camera tests with them. You can actually keep them updated about the process, and simplify things for them. There's some relaxing exercise before filming, or some techniques that you can actually tell them, or help them with doing a conversation and trying to, okay, don't look at the camera, this is more a conversation between us, answer these questions, tell about the project, because sometimes they are also, when you share with them the script, they are so focused on the script that they forget what they have done. And they actually are maybe the experts of the project, and they actually know how to do it. So it's just like, talk about your work, talk about your things in a more simple way, and you do it as much as you need. So this is something that actually can happen. A lot of the times here we actually had like these problems, and we actually started this conversation and everything, and we have the camera rolling without them knowing. So then probably it was like a very nice, so the take-up that was for exercising was actually the one that was the most relaxed and the most useful. So we actually used that one. So have this also, prepare these techniques, because I think it's really important also for you. Another stage is then the communication plan. So you have a video, but do you know how you're going to share it? Do you know how the video is going to be? How is it going to look like? What is the communication plan? Are you going to share it in the Christmas party? Are you going to actually share it through your internal intranet? Are you going to share it through Slack or through your messenger tool, the messenger tool that you have? Like, how are you going to share this video and make the content appealing? So, okay, I have a problem here. Okay, so yeah. So now that you have this content, how are you going to ensure that your content is engaging and consumed? Like, are people going to watch this? Is it like, maybe are you sharing this during, I don't know, the annual evaluations, and everybody's busy filling up these evaluations and they don't have the time to share the video, to see a video of 3 minutes? Like, really think about these things and make a roll-up plans and define your metrics. And this also share it and communicate it with your stakeholder, because this is also a very part, because sometimes we do videos or we create all these things and we invest a lot of times, but then we realize that nobody watches, that we wasted a lot of time for something that actually has like zero engagement. So it is really, really important to have a role to create a communication plan for sharing this content. Next stage is, this is something for external. So once you're going to communicate externally, sometimes I think, although we are working on internal, as I said, like this internal content can actually become external content very easily, and you have like the opportunity to help. So it's really important, and we at Trivago do it, to define some things. So for us, it's really important to define what and who we are, like what is the company persona, to define this with all the stakeholders that are involved, probably external communications. Internal communications has to say also in this, talent attraction or employer branding, they also have something to say. So we need to define what is the company persona, what is different and unique about your company or about this content that you're going to share. And for external also, it's really important to define a voice and a tone, like how are we speaking as a company? Is it we are going to share it in social media? How is this video? What is the voice and the tone that we want to express outside? And it's very important to have what we don't communicate. Recently, we worked on a video, so we had like our Pride participation, and we created our videographer created a video. And then when we wanted to share it also externally, because we share it internally, but then it was the content that it was useful to be shared external, our talent attraction and employer branding, they say we are not going to share this because these things inside this video are not something that we share, and there was not alignment or what we wanted to share. So we wasted a lot of time on discussions on how, why, who decides, and these things. So it's really important then to align before with all these stakeholders involved and decide, okay, what do we not communicate? So we don't waste the time of the videographer, and they have clear guidelines. Okay, this is something that we would do not share at our company externally, never. And I think this is it sounds also very logical, but it's also very important to actually know these things. So videos, I'm gonna drink a little bit of water. So for videos, this is what I wanted to share for us, some of the problems that we face having videos. So the current issues that probably we have or we had in the past. So we realized that videos, there's a lot of work, and usually there's low engagement. So we worked in a lot of videos, and now we are actually doing more strategic videos. We don't do a lot of videos. We were working, as I mentioned, when we started, we were doing all the time a video, like I don't know, 3 videos or 4 videos a month, which was a lot. And people were not watching the videos because we were doing videos of 6 minutes, for example. We were doing videos of with people that were not very comfortable in front of the camera. We were doing all the time like these interview videos that were not really appealing for the audience. So it was a lot of work, and we had like very low engagement. Also, we realized that the videos internally are better, like the social videos perform better. So when you do a video about an event that happened, we have an event at Trivago that is called our internal tech meeting. So it's an internal tech meeting, and everyone, it's called Tech Get Together. So everyone gets in all the techie profiles in our company. They go for 2 days out. They have presentations. They do an event that is really nice. And we did, for example, a video showing this, and it was really quick. The video, there was no interview. It was just showcasing what happened there. And these videos perform really good because they are more dynamic. They have music in background music. They actually share like everything really quickly, and it's like a snapshot of what happened. And these videos really perform better. The other problem that we saw is like sometimes to tell a story is, for us, it was very difficult to move away from the interview format. So sitting someone asking, or maybe facing someone sitting and they speaking about something. So this is what we actually want to do, and we are working now. We are going for videos that are more dynamic, that are easy to watch. If you actually think of the videos that you see on social media, that you actually stop and see these videos, you realize that these videos are actually the videos that are more dynamic. You don't see super long videos because you don't have the time. And the same happens to employees. Like when they're in the company, they actually don't have time, like maybe to see a very long video about somebody speaking in the same tone, very like low piece video. These are not very good. Also, as I was saying, like the employees who are not trained to speak in front of the camera, this is something of an issue, because if you see someone very stiff in the camera, or also that is nervous and that is having a bad time, you kind of like they transmit this. And as a viewer, you don't see these kind of videos. You just get like really, I don't know, it gets awkward. Then the length, I think like for us, it's really, we discovered that doing like videos more than 2 minutes, nobody's going to watch it. So if you have something to say, actually you have to be very quick and you have to be very strategic and to the point, because videos that are longer than that, it's very difficult for people to engage on those videos. They don't have the time, employees, to actually watch. And then we have like the platform. So this is really important, the platform. And I think I'm going to talk really now about what is the platform that you have to share, because we also face a lot of issues when creating like the videos and coming up with the right platform. So the platform. So for me, it's really important when decided if you're going to start doing videos as part of your strategy in internal comms, and you have to decide on this platform. So it's really important, what are you going to say before deciding to on this platform. Like it's really important to involve the right stakeholders for deciding on the platform, and then this platform actually kind of like is in line with your goal and with your strategy, because you will need this platform, you will need to rely on this platform. So the first thing that we actually need is to involve IT, because for example, for us, we have Microsoft package and we have like they offer a lot of things there. And probably before going and buying the perfect platform, check with IT what you currently have and see if you can actually adapt to your needs. This is really important. Then the platform, I think it's really important what the platform can do in terms of measurement for your KPIs. Like, can the platform, I don't know, tell you if you're going to actually, when people stop and abandon the session, is something that they do, they don't. This is also important because you can actually, the more you have, the better decisions you can take for deciding a video and what type of videos. There are some platforms that actually they don't tell you if the person abandoned the video in the middle of the video, they abandoned the middle of the session, and there are some platforms that they do. So what type of reports, it's easy to see these reports, it's easy to understand the results. Also the accessibility, like is it accessible for employees inside the company? Do they need to do, I don't know, single sign-on, or they need to actually enter different credentials, all these things? Because if you have like a different password or something to enter this platform, if you have to put your password every time, this is also like a barrier or a blocker for employees to actually go into the platform and see the video. And how aware are they that this platform is actually there? Are they allowed to have it in their phone, for example, or not? These kind of things. The functionality, I think, also goes with the user experience. Like, how is it going to work? Is it easy to navigate through this platform, like to see the videos? Is it easy to search for things? Do we need to tag? And then maybe as internal communications, we need to do a really good work of creating different folders or channels where they can find things. We currently are using Microsoft Stream, and you can create like different channels. So you can say, okay, this is for, I don't know, these teams, or maybe this is for topics related to our leadership team. This is for topic created more social. This is for topics related to our culture. So you can actually create these things, and it's actually easy. And then the search functionalities. So usually for searching, sometimes the platforms are good, but this is very important for our roles. Do we put the right tags? Do we define tags before? Like, we need to probably define some tags so people actually know and they can find the videos, or what are the names that we are using for videos. Then I think it's really important for this part that is called channels. That is, so you need to see in your internal communication channels, is this platform adaptable? For example, we have like what we call our news hub, which is our newsroom. and or our news site, and can you embed those videos in your news site? Because sometimes you need an article, you publish an article, and it's supported by a video. So if you do this, is it this platform allowing you to do this? And it's really important to see if, like, for example, is the videos adapting to, can you embed the videos in Slack, for example? We can't. So this is not a problem from the platform, but a problem from Slack. But I think all these questions and see, okay, from my current channels that I'm having, and can I adapt, and can I kind of like mix channels, and is this platform allowing me to put videos there? So this is also important. The user experience inside the platform, like also, as I mentioned, search functionality, but also how to navigate internally. Is it easier is it easy for employees to actually go there? Is it something that is intuitive for them? And then the other part, I think, that is also involving IT, and it's really important, is IT security. So when we do internal videos and when we work on this, sometimes this information is important that it's not disclosure outside. So this information cannot go outside the company. Is information that is only allowed to be consumed inside on the company and for employees. So we actually need to know and have maybe involve IT security and say, okay, how can we ensure that we are secure, that this platform is secure enough for us to protect our content? I don't know if you have seen that recently somebody shared, like in Facebook, some of the an internal, I don't know, they have an internal Q&A, and yeah, so they were speaking and they shared that, and so it went everywhere in the news. So I think it's important that you can ensure this, that, for example, if the employees have this platform in their phone, okay, that it has security, so nobody can actually reach this. Yeah, this is kind of like the things before thinking of the platform, what you need to know. The other project that we started working on is podcasts. So I'm gonna drink again water, sorry. So we started this year actually working on some podcasts. So we did some testings, and the project, to be honest, is still under being tested. So what we have here is that we discover a lot of things for podcasts. I think all the things that I mentioned before creating another visual content are also for when creating a podcast. But for us, we actually have, we are facing some issues also. So I'm gonna share with you the current issues that we have. So it is really important, I think, for podcasts, finding the right moderator, because this moderator and this person needs to be really comfortable and needs to be able to kind of like enhance the discussion and the debate, because usually these podcasts are, of course, it depends if it's more informative, but if it's more a discussion, you need to actually find someone that actually has like this is the right moderator, that has this the timing, that it's really easy for him to speak, that has like a nice enunciation, that they can actually promote the debate and make the people participating in the podcast speak. Then I think for us it's also was very important selecting the topics. We actually came up with different kind of like formats again, and we say, okay, we have like our culture format. So everything that is culture related to our company, we will put it here and we create this program. Everything that is more related to our tech employees, we're going to put it here. So define probably your formats and how you want to drive them. Like maybe, I don't know, there are certain topics that are more for a discussion and debate, and there are some other topics that is more somebody speaking and telling more of a story or more informative. Also, again, I think that all the things that I share about the platform for videos are applicable to podcasts. Is it very important? Is it accessible? And it's also secure enough. But I think one important thing for podcasts, and it's more important than videos, I think podcasts is really important that people have this platform available at their phone, and that they have it with the level of security that is required. So I think that is really key, because probably people actually listen to podcasts, and we did a survey, and they actually listen to podcasts when commuting probably. So they can actually listen to some content related to the company, and they are willing to do it if they will have it on their phone. Probably more than spending, I don't know, 20 minutes listening to a podcast and while they are working or in the office, because they actually need to take this 20 minutes. Because if you are doing something very I don't know, automated, maybe you can listen to the podcast. But if you're doing something, at least for me, it doesn't work. That if you're doing something that it requires your attention, I will not pay attention to what is being said on the podcast. So I think in here it's really important to ensure, like, if you want to share this, if you want to do podcasts, and just check with your employees if they are actually willing to do it, to listen to this podcast outside working hours, and then you will need to have something that is secure enough to be on their phones. Then also, how do you address sensitive topics? Like it's very difficult to address them. Like I think conversations need to be very natural. So when you're addressing sensitive topics, also if the platform is accessible for their phones, how you're going to share it, because also these kind of things, that having this tool in their phones, well, you need to actually make sure that the sensitive topics are addressed in a proper way, right? And again, like working hours versus outside of work, how are they going to? We don't know. Like people, while they are working, there is difficult that they spend more time on the podcast, because podcasts are like videos. They cannot be 5 minutes. It's very difficult to address and get into the right mood in 5 minutes. But also it cannot be like 1 hour podcast, right? So you actually need to kind of like we kind of like had different podcasts with different lengths, and we actually discovered that around 15-20 minutes is a good time. Some topics might require 25-30 minutes, but very, very special topics, and it's probably the topics that maybe have a C-level speaking there or participating. Then regarding also the podcast, I think it's really important the role of the moderator, and there are some tips that we actually have. So when created like the podcast that we did, I involved our employees, and it was important that, for example, for them, employees that were involved in a project, and they actually were pushing this topic and working on this project, and we wanted to tell the company. So it's really important to give clear guidelines to the participants and to make the podcast the most natural as possible. So it's just like making, again, tips, like this is just a conversation. Probably send them questions in advance, like think about these topics. You don't need to answer these questions. You don't need to answer the questions. Just make these questions so they can start thinking about the topic and think how they're going to answer. Enhance the debate, like try to promote the debate. For me, when I moderated the podcast, I had like some points written down that I wanted to touch. So I wanted to discuss certain things. And then it came naturally. We were discussing, and I was like marking, okay, this came, and probably try to make some questions in that direction, but it came very natural. And I think the important thing for podcasts is it has to be natural. It has to be the opinions of people, right? So it has to be really natural, and people feeling that you are actually listening to an honest conversation between people, to an honest discussion, and that people are actually working on this. They're able to give their opinion. It's not something that the company is kind of like giving a direction and saying, okay, you have to say this. We didn't say anyone what they had to say. It was just more like talk about this. We're talking about this topic. I don't know. We're talking about recognition. Okay, how do you think recognition should be done at our company? Okay, what do you think about now what we have currently with recognition? And give them the space to actually, maybe if they have like some critics, to actually make them, because this is welcome, because this will make the conversation more natural. In terms of the length, as I said before, like we actually discovered that between 50 to 25 minutes is the important one, but don't try to force it. Like if you are in a podcast and you are saying, okay, I need to have 15 minutes or 20 minutes, the conversation will not come natural. So if you actually have, like, for example, you had a conversation, and at the 30 minutes you realize that all the topic is done, and that you don't need anything to discuss more, and this is it. Like you can say, okay, so this is the wrap up, and this is final, because I think this is really, really important, because then the conversation will not feel natural again. Then in terms of key messages, I think that first 20 seconds are the most important to catch the attention of people. especially in a podcast, like what are you going to discuss, what are you going to talk about, who is there. I think it's really important. Then before the podcast, also define the style. Is it going to be more informative and somebody speaking about a topic, or is it going to be more an interview? We work more on this 3-4 people participating and having like this debate. I think it worked really well because you can listen to different opinions, and it was really nice. And then also again, what do you don't communicate? Okay, so what are the topics you don't want to touch there? Because maybe, I don't know, as we mentioned, like they have everybody has these podcasts in their phones and they have the possibility to share it in a way. So also I think it's we are in at a moment that it's really important to think about security and how we share and what are we going to share, because this can be like a very big, it can result in a very big crisis. It's something that is not that is shared that you don't want to be shared. It can be a very difficult corporate crisis. So yeah, this is kind of like the tips for the moderators, and then some learnings that I think I had in terms of internal communications. So for us, it's really important to actually have 3 things, like, and I think it's how to increase engagement for us. And I think that the engagement is the biggest problems that we have in internal communications, and it is really big. And there are, I think, 3 things that we have. Alignment, as I mentioned. I think it's really important to for internal communications to be aligned with HR and to define what the organization stands for, and how do we want to involve employees and encourage them to help us out. So what is this alignment, I think it's key. So we can also know what are we going to involve employees and encourage them to help us out. It's really key. The other thing is creating transparency, creating trust. It means that your words should match your actions as a company. And I think that if you achieve trust and you actually achieve this and make people trust you, employees respond to communication when they feel this transparency, when they feel that the conversations they have the opportunity to share, they have the opportunity to question, they have the opportunity to challenge, and that you are saying things. I think this is really important because employees will respond to this. They will engage in the debates. They will engage in trying to share their opinions, and it's really key. And the other thing is empowerment. And I think here again is more about the role of us internal communicators. So we are in an era that everyone shares everything, and the employees can actually share videos with their phones because they can actually communicate a lot. So I think the role of the internal communicators is to influence this communication by facilitating relevant dialogue. And here, for example, podcasts is something that actually can help you, is a very useful and powerful tool to actually help you facilitate these relevant dialogues and have the employees talk about topics, but you are the one providing this environment, giving the guidelines and giving everything that actually help them share more of their thoughts and more of what they are doing, and actually being the ones communicating. So now I think it's time for the Q&A if we have. Thank you for listening, and I'm open up for questions.
Thank you, Francisco, for your presentation. Yeah, like you said, we are now ready for the Q&A. And if I check, I already got some questions for you. Let's start with the first question, which is, let me see, there it is. How to decide if a content deserves a video?
Okay, I think that it is really important to actually know where are you going to share this content, like who the reach that it needs to have for knowing this, like before deciding on a video. And also I think it's really important to define like the rollout plan. So how are you going to say, okay, what is the intention, right? So the first questions that we actually ask, like, what is your communication need? Like, what is the outcome that you have? What do you want to share? Like, what are the key messages? And what do you expect people to do once they see this video? So or to see if this content, once they see this content, what do they want to see? So as I mentioned, for me, actually, videos related to more like educational videos or social videos, I think are the best for telling something. And I think like also we need to work on videos that are telling a story. So when you need to tell a story and create something, I think it's better than saying putting someone there just to speak about a topic or a project. I think that you really need to ask these questions that we mentioned.
All right, thanks. Then another question, what platform do you use to distribute podcasts?
Okay, so this is a question that we actually are working on. So for us now, we have looked at a lot of platforms at the moment, and we are checking these as security functionalities. And I think also the part that we mentioned about knowing, for example, if we can actually have it in our phones. So we were trying out Microsoft Stream to actually put the podcast kind of as a video, like you actually put like yeah, like here, like you see Q&A, but somebody speaking. And we saw that this could actually work. But for example, you could actually have it with the single sign-on in your phone and everything. But then we faced another problem that if you actually leave the application of Microsoft Stream from your phone to actually, while you listen to the podcast, navigate through your social media, then the podcast stopped. So it was not useful anymore. So I think this is something that you need to see how your employees are going to use it, and how do you pretend them to use it also for deciding for the platform. And I think it's before deciding on anything, involve your IT support or IT to actually help you out with all the security problems and to help you out with the user experience. You can actually make the people from IT in your company test this platform because they can discover a lot of things.
All right, and then I think one last question here. How much investment do we need to have podcasts?
I think here it depends on how you want to do it. We actually created a studio, a very cool studio, and we invested a lot of money. But I also know that, for example, we at the beginning we did podcasts just going to a meeting room that is kind of quiet, and you buy like these microphones that you connect to your computer, and it's like a microphone where everyone can speak, and it has like very good sounds. So this could actually be with just downloading some programs in your computer or using like the tools that comes in. I don't know if you have a Mac in Mac, and just buying like this microphone can actually be something to start, because probably you say, okay, I don't want to do the whole big investment, but just with some microphones and a good computer and a meeting room that is a little bit isolated from noise, from external noise, could be actually a way to start. So I don't think that it requires a lot of money. I think that it's important to have someone that can actually then edit a little bit or create the edition, because somebody proficient in these edition things is really important also for videos.